One of the biggest storage areas in most cruising boats is the hanging locker. But is hanging clothes on hangers the best use for this space? Do you even own clothing on hangers? Hi, I'm Carolyn Sherlock, and on this episode of the Boat Galley Podcast, I'll share how we get a lot more use out of our hanging lockers with one easy project. You can do it too. Now, this episode of the Boat Galley Podcast is sponsored by Marmara Imports. Their hand-loomed, fair trade, organic cotton Turkish towels are highly absorbent, dry quickly, fold flat, and are soft and luxurious. Perfect for life aboard. I absolutely love mine. You can use coupon code PODCAST10, that's PODCAST, and the number's 10, for 10% off any order of $40 or more. Marmara Imports, more than a towel. Okay, so let's talk about how you can improve your storage space. Cape Cotal, our first cruising boat, Tayana 37, had one hanging locker that was over 3 feet wide and another just over a foot wide. But we didn't have any hanging clothes aboard. What could we do with this space? I do understand that if you're living aboard while working, you probably do have some hanging closers. But many weekenders or full-time cruisers just don't. For a year on Cape Cotal, we just sort of stuffed things in both those lockers. Well, I had a few milk crates on the bottom with canned goods, then a layer of paper towels and bags of rags, and then some t-shirts hanging on the rod. It was hard to find items, and I kept thinking that if we converted at least part of that space to drawers, I could rearrange a bunch of other things so that everything would be easier to get to. The only problem was that the space wasn't really square, and neither Dave nor I would ever be mistaken for a fine carpenter. It had to be easy. I also didn't want to use wire shelves or drawers, as they are prone to rust and salt tear and can leave marks on clothes. Small items can also fall through those wire shelf type things. Finally, I was able to find a bunch of heavy-duty plastic dishpans that were just slightly narrower than the narrow locker. They were sized so that I could put 2 deep. The front one wouldn't slide out easily, but with a bit of wiggling, it could be removed so I could get to the back one. Due to the hull curvature, there was one bin on the floor also. Because they were hard to get to, I used the back one for things that we needed to have aboard but didn't get out that often, such as guest towels, extra PFDs, and old tax records. Dave got a bunch of furring strips and put them along the sides. The bins just sit on the wood pieces, the lips of them catching on the wood. Using plastic bins like this, you can't put really heavy items into the bins or they'll warp or break. But generally you want the heavy stuff as low in the boat as possible, so we never really found it to be a problem. Now, you may not be able to duplicate this exactly in your boat, but it might give you an idea for converting an underutilized locker to efficient storing space. And when we bought our second boat, Barefoot Gal, the one we're on now, we did exactly the same type of project in 2 different areas. One we actually made into shelves, putting furring strips and a piece of wood on top of it. The other one, I got some of the hanging shelves that you can find on Amazon. Both of them worked out really well. Took space that wasn't being used otherwise and made it into very usable space for a lot of our clothing. Hey, if you have found this episode of the Boat Galley Podcast to give you some useful ideas, be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any future episodes. And please tell friends and other cruising folks about our podcast. We love to hear from everybody.